Okay, Dylan, we're going to review and assess your research stage and leading into your planning to cover that area.
Yep.
I've had a look at your research and it's quite extensive and detailed. You have a lot of information in here, so well done. You've covered so many different areas from the styles of short films, thrillers, you've talked about technical aspects, you've talked about issues that may arise, you've looked at existing products, etc., etc.
I've covered a lot, but have I covered everything?
Well, certainly not very much left to go into. I would say that stuff we've talked about, reaching the end stage, is talking about how it's going to be distributed. We talked earlier about putting together deliverables and packages and stuff like that. So that's maybe stuff you could add in. I know you've already covered a lot of it whenever I was talking to you, but there's always going to be stuff you can add to your research. Right up until the final day, there's probably something you can add. But what we need to do now is say, does he have enough research to move into those planning production stages, which I know you do, and I know you've already started and stuff like that. So what I want you to do or chat about today is some of these different stages of research and how they have helped you and whether or not they're beneficial and for you to evaluate them, I guess. So let's start off with talking about existing products. And you watched and researched a number of them and how that has helped you in your production and creating your project.
Well, they are what spawned the initial idea in the first place for this project. You know, watching these type of things made me realise, I want to go out and make my own.
Make your own what? Just obviously, if people's watching this and they don't know what we're talking about, so what are you making?
Crime, drama, thriller kind of film, yeah. Aye. So watching stuff like Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, The Godfather, Heat, Casino, Donnie Brasco, Scarface, all that. Watching all that, you know. Watching all that allowed me to form my idea. I was like, right, I want to make something that's exactly like this, you know, but with my own kind of spin, obviously. Then, of course, as well, different scenes that like stood out to me. I was like, okay, you know, maybe it would be cool to replicate or pay tribute to these in my own thing. Different camera shots as well, different editing styles, which I go into in my research. How they can be influential, and how they can inspire me.
Okay, so you not only researched how these things are put together and formed and the overall feel of the TV shows and TV series and films, but then also looking at the technical aspects and how they're shot and how they're cut and how they're edited and put together.
I like what makes them them.
Okay, did we look at maybe music and atmospherics as well?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's move on. As I said, you've done a lot of research into different
a lot of
programs
scrolling to do here, but I hear all about the writing that goes into them. What sort of like.
Okay, so we look at plots and we look at how they climax, and you've done some conclusions and summaries at the end. Target audiences. So we looked at target audience. How do you think that's going to help with your production?
Well, if I'm distributing it into, say, a film festival, or if I'm screening it, who would I want to start marketing that towards? Who would I want to start pushing that onto to try and get them to come and see it?
So that's thinking of your target audience at the end of your final product.
Yep.
Were you also thinking of target audience while you were scripting and storyboarding and producing?
Yep. Like, think about like who am I making this for?
And why is that important?
Well, it's to get people to like see it, and it's also to entertain, and it's also to create something that's like of high quality, you know.
Yeah, because if you don't have a target audience, then you're only really making it for yourself, aren't you? It becomes a little bit of a self-indulgent.
Yeah, and that's not. I mean, like it's hard to do that. Like in a way, like it is like partially for me because I watched these things and I really enjoyed them. I was like, I want to make one that's mine. See, it's partially for me, but like that's also, but it's not just for me. Like there has to be a consideration for an outside audience, a wider, broader spectrum of people who would come and see this thing. If, for example, you know, just sort of thinking like, what if it got like a widespread theatrical release? This would be the kind of stuff I'd have to be looking at when writing it and putting it together for something similar to that.
Good. So, what I've took from that, and what I think is important, is that you have considered an audience from early conception right up until distribution.
Yep.
And that is quite
That's like
important.
one of the first things in my research is talking about the audience.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the ages in there, we've got locations in there, we've got the behavioural types, and we've got the audience types, like the explorers and all that there. I can't really remember them off the top of my head, but I know what they are.
Mm-hmm. And you
But
carried
I
out
have
audience
mentioned them.
research and surveys
I,
and questionnaires, didn't you?
Yep, there's Survey Monkeys on there.
Mm-hmm. And I see you've also talked about audience theory to look
Yep.
at the more sort of academic side of it.
Yep.
Okay, excellent.
Here we go, conventions. So mise en scene, so that's the settings.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like, there's a picture of a bar
Mhm.
there.
And
Funny
just
enough.
if anybody is watching
Yep.
this at a later stage, we are looking at your research on screen
Yep,
here,
we are
which
indeed.
will be available on your website for,
Yep.
for anyone to look at.
Yep.
Okay.
But as you can see, they're in a bar there. That's
Mhm.
from the film Mean Streets. I also have a bar in my film.
Mm-hmm.
They wear suits as well. A couple of people in mine wear suits.
Okay, excellent. So basically what you're saying to me is your research wasn't done for the sake of just research. You actually applied that to
Yeah.
your mise en scene whenever
Yep.
it came to you designing your locations, your
Uh-huh.
costumes, your settings, your framing, your composition.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I can clearly see this in your research and your lighting and your colours. What's really important then is that we have that at the research stage, that we can then see that again in your planning and pre-production. So in your planning, whenever you're scouting for locations to follow what you found from your research,
Yep.
when you're casting, when you are scene building, scene designing, costumes, etc., etc. So we can see that in your scripting, storyboards, casting, planning, etc., etc.
Oh, yeah, it's all there, yeah.
Okay, excellent. So, yeah, looking at how to carry out a risk. So you
assessment,
researched
yes.
into how to carry out risk assessments.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you've researched into how to cast and what is casting.
Yep.
So again, this would have all transitioned into your actual casting.
Yeah.
Bring us this.
Like for casting, I had a character in the film that was completely based off a random show reel I saw on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
of an actor from Belfast. And I was just like, and he was like sort of very typecast as that kind of criminal role.
Mhm.
So I wrote that part with him in mind. Didn't know the fella at
Mhm.
all. I just wrote it with him in mind. And then when the script was ready, I approached him with it, and he accepted, and he came and been in it. So
I don't know how often that is like Hollywood director things, isn't it?
yeah.
Where they create parts for like actors.
Yeah.
They think, oh,
But
I really want to work with that guy.
I've like looked around like the local scene,
Uh-huh.
so I'm able to do that for like local people.
Brilliant. So
it's
you're-
like, what
so-
show reels have I seen
Uh-huh.
that I could go and create a part that I could then think, oh, this actor would be perfect, and I wouldn't even need him to do audition for it.
What's the benefit of that, do you think?
Benefit of like what, like writing
Of
with someone that, you know.
researching available actors, looking at their acting spec, and then creating a character
Well,
around what they can
You
provide. What's the
then
benefit, do
you
you
don't
think?
have to go through like an audition process.
Mhm.
It's like if you approach them with it and they accept it, that's like a very straightforward,
Mhm.
simple process, and it's very easy.
Do you think that
It's like-
approaching them and saying that you'd seen their profile and you thought this character was good for them and you sort of slightly wrote it for them, do you think that's going to not wax their ego but certainly engage with them a lot better?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, because he was very responsive to
Mhm.
that, and he said that was the first time that had happened to him.
Perfect.
And so in that there was a lot of interest from him. He was very happy to be
Mhm.
sort of very kind of back and forward with it. There's a word for it. It's like responsive, I guess. You know, he was sort of very happy to
Communicative?
Kind of, yeah. Like he would like constantly message me.
engaged?
Yeah. He would constantly message me about like updates of like the like where's the pre-production sitting at, how close are we to shooting, and he was like messaging me like each and every
Mhm.
week, and we would like talk back and forward like for hours about it.
I take it this is a amateur actor as well.
Yeah. I mean, like he's on like Spotlight UK
Because
and
what
all.
you'll
and
find is maybe with
I
people
think
like
he's
that.
I think he's represented as
Uh-huh.
well, but he was still like happy enough to like come do this.
Yeah, because that's, I mean, one thing that I hate is people approaching you with opportunities and saying you can get exposure. It's like a big thing in the media
Yeah.
industry where people, you know, it's like you're not getting paid, but it's really good to work with people that aren't making money. You're not
yeah,
making
yeah,
money
yeah.
off this, so you're not exploiting this person.
No.
But you're approaching him.
I
going,
actually am paying them. I'm
Uh-huh.
actually paying my actors.
Good.
I'm working at like payment plans
Okay,
for
excellent.
them.
But what I mean is, you being passionate and having a project,
Yep.
and approach somebody else who's also passionate about what they do,
Yep.
to be involved in the project and then work
Yep.
together is
Yep.
good. It's very
Yep.
productive.
Yep.
Whereas if it was a company that was going to exploit people and go, come work with me for free and I'll give you exposure, then that's bad. But to work with people, both creative minds on something that's good, and it seems that he has that creative input to it.
he like we talk back and forward about like what he could add to the character himself by playing it. And we would talk about like backstory, like does he have like say elderly parents, does he have like children, etc., etc., what's his past life like. We just went into like so much detail.
So that probably
But
helps him
he
with
was
your
really,
research as well.
He was really damn happy to engage with that because I had came to him and say, here, so I saw your profile and wrote this in mind for you. And he was like, okay, let's build this thing together. And we did, and it was a very collaborative effort in that way.
Well, that's good, and you can look
Yeah.
back on that and evaluate that process, how beneficial it is, and obviously apply that. I know you're
Well,
going
that's
on.
what we're doing here.
I know
We're
that you're going on to
evaluating
work
it,
to apply for a course beyond this.
Yeah.
So I guess using that technique again in the future would definitely be something
right,
that that you could
yeah.
put in place. Okay, so next up.
And then it also adds a new connection as well, because now we're, we're friendly. We know each other. We're aware of each other. So
And that's
then
really important in the industry.
It is, yeah. So it's like now it's like if there's sort of a job going that like he knows of, then he can, but it's like not right for him or whatever. He can be like, I know a guy, and then I can do the same for him, vice versa. And it's like, but then we could also collaborate again in the future if say I've noticed something different about him from working with him, and then there's different aspects of him I could then take and put into a new character later down the road. So I'm not just having him play the same character over and over again, but it's like getting to know him.
So you can utilize them in different
Yeah,
situations.
yeah,
and
yeah,
roles.
exactly. Yeah, getting to know him, then I can sort of pull different parts of his personality, and not just with him, but with everyone else too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might be good to get some feedback from everyone you've worked with at the end to put into like not a CV but into something in case you are approaching another project again, and you can say you've got feedback from people that are working in industry and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's as simple as
So let's move on to, I see here you have researched equipment.
Yep.
So I know that last year we've got a slightly different approach this year. Why do you think it's important to research the equipment, and has that helped you with your planning and creating some of your early content?
Because researching the equipment is important because, well, you want to know what you're working with. Obviously, you want to know like, okay, what definition can this shoot in? What's its pixel rate? What's its millimeter in
Specs.
size? Yeah, what's the
Okay.
specs of it? And compared to other equipment I have access to, what works better? What's more beneficial? What's going to make this look nicer?
So that's one of the things we talked
What's
about,
going to work
wasn't
in
it?
different
Yeah.
lightings and all that there.
Remember we talked about maybe trying a couple of different cameras and seeing what creates
Which
the best
I
results or
did
whatever?
a test shoot with the Canon, but then I had last year's final major on the wee like video cameras, and I just looked at the test shoot and looked at that film, and that's how I made my decision.
Okay,
It was just
good.
like, yeah, no, okay, I don't know, I wanted to use this
Good.
one.
So you're understanding the tools that you're using and utilising the tools that
Yeah,
are best for
and
your
I
situation.
used the remote mic rather than the microphone on the camera, because then that means you can have someone get right in close to us to capture the best, closest sound as possible, rather than having the microphone on the camera, which then it'll then pick up the sound from where the camera is, which could...
So it's fair to say, and sorry, I don't know if you've mentioned it in your research, it's fair to say that you used last year's project then as part of your research,
Yeah, of course.
because you've looked at what's good and what's bad of last
Yeah,
year.
you have
So
to evaluate and compare,
good. Okay, and then we see you've done research into shooting, editing, sound techniques.
Yep.
Okay, and editing skills,
Yep.
sound, good. So all the different skill
There's
sets
the wind
around
patterns,
thing.
yeah.
And now we're moving on to one biggie that we had from last year that we talked about last year, and that was outside noise
Environmental.
intruding
Sorry,
into your
yeah.
recordings, and
Yep.
yours was wind.
Yep.
So I can see that you've researched basically how wind impacts sound and how wind movements, and we talk about
Yep.
thermal turbulence and mechanical turbulence. You got
Yep.
quite detailed here and scientific on it.
Yep.
So how did you find that helped, and what did you find out?
Well, I found out the times that I think you've got like an older link there. I'll probably have to publish and
Mhm.
like send you a new one. But what I found is times of when wind is more likely to be active
Mhm.
and times when it's more likely to be calm.
Mhm.
And I have found that it is far less active in mornings and evenings than it is. Yeah, I think that's an outdated link. I think I've added more to it since. So, as I said,
Yes, go ahead.
wind is like a lot less active in mornings and night times. It sort of starts dying down about evening times. Peak time for wind is 3 p.m.
Mhm.
but the least time you're likely to get it is 6 a.m.
Okay.
So that would then sort of look at that, work
So
around
when's
it.
your best times
and
to shoot in regards to wind?
then, would be morning times or night times.
Okay. And what else is good at morning and night time?
It would be it would be quite desolate. It wouldn't be too busy.
Yeah, so
in
not
a
as
lot
much
of
background
places.
noise.
Yes,
but
so-
also lighting.
Yeah, as well too. Yeah.
You know, we had the best lighting at sunrise and sunset whenever
Yeah.
we were not oversaturated by too much hanging. And then
Yeah.
also we talk about things like, I guess, comfort of shooting at that time and heat.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of things that benefit you to shooting at certain times.
Yep.
But wind.
So I would always plan my shoots like early in the morning if it was
Mhm.
a daytime scene, but then if it was at night time, I'd like no bother, no worries. We can just sort of come out when it hits dark,
Mhm.
and usually the wind will be like low. Yeah, and like 9 times out of 10, it always was. Unless there was some kind of like rainstorm going on, but then that's just sort of natural
Good.
weather that you can't really predict. You
If
just have to work
you
with it.
Think about the time of year that we're shooting,
Yeah,
which is moving from
that's it as well.
winter.
Wind is more active
Spring.
in autumn and winter than it
Uh-huh.
is in spring and summer.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're moving into, as we progress on with time, wind gets less,
Yep.
but
That's
we
right.
are limited with time. So
Yep.
unfortunately, we don't have that.
So
where
I
we
mean,
can
I
just
was having
go
to
off.
shoot sort of like late winter, early spring, but I
Mhm.
was still able to work around it enough that it didn't hinder me like too much at all.
One of the things that I had mentioned to you last year was trying to remove as much outside narrative,
Yeah.
so we can take out the background noise and replace that with ambience and sort of city noises, whatever else. Did you have to shoot a lot of narration outside, or
Yeah, like a fair bit of it, yeah, because a lot of indoor would have been requiring a lot of location hire, so that wasn't too feasible. But I still was very careful with like I was like checking weather updates constantly, and I was making sure like the wind levels would be low, and I can safely say this year haven't had a single issue with wind
Good,
that
good.
I couldn't work around.
one of the things you mentioned, and I don't know
Got
if
it.
if you used that, was that you were saying about positioning yourself in places where it might
Yeah.
be shielded from the
Yeah,
wind, like maybe
I did
beside
that,
trees,
yeah.
beside a building.
Yep, I did that. There's just one scene that was in a field, and that did get a lot of wind
Mhm.
constantly, but I was able to ADR it.
Good.
No problem.
Good.
It's fine.
Good.
It's a completely fine scene now.
One of the things I showed you last year, I don't know if you used it, was using the noise print technology in Adobe, where you can take the frequency of the wind and sort of filter it or bring it out a bit. Sometimes it removes other bits and it makes your
Yeah,
sound a bit
no,
distorted.
that's it. Yeah, kind of. I tried it, but it was very hard to grab it because it was different frequencies. So
Yeah,
you would
so
end
it
up
changes.
overcutting into
Yeah.
someone talking, and
Yeah.
then it would just you would get like random bits of them talking normally, but then it would dip very quiet. But then if you brought the volume back up, then it would.
Yeah.
So it was like
It's
it's much
experimental.
better just to take this out and replace it with a new
Oh yeah,
audio
it's-
track.
yeah, totally. Okay, so my review of your research is it's excellent and detailed, and it covers
Yeah.
sort of every single aspect.
Would I
that
be able
we
to
need
send you over the new the
Yeah, of
updated
course.
website and then come back and do a bit more of this because I'm not finished talking yet.
Yeah, so yeah, you can update that and send to me. But I thought I
Yep.
had a different one that had more stuff down here.
I know.
was pretty
I
sure.
sent this to. I sent that to. I've been working on it since, but I don't think I've like republished it.
Okay. So yes, I mean, as I said, your research is hugely detailed.
Like as you can see there, it says 6 a.m. No
Mhm.
thermal turbulence, no mechanical turbulence.
Mhm.
6
And
a.m. as well.
I can already see.
And then I
how-
also took into consideration is like height.
Mhm.
The higher up you are, more windy it is. So be careful if you're shooting uphill or downhill. If you know you want to avoid wind, it's actually far better to shoot lower ground.
Good. So what you're saying is your research has
It's like
made
we wouldn't,
you.
we wouldn't want to go shoot up in Cave Hill
Yeah.
at like 3 p.m.
So
So
you're-
that would be a lot of wind. But
Yeah.
but if you're shooting sort of like down by like the sea at like 6 a.m., you can get very low wind.
So your location, setting, and time has been influenced by your research,
Yeah.
and what you're trying to do is eliminate as many issues as possible,
Yeah.
rather than trying to deal with them post.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh yeah, no, you don't want that whole fix it and post attitude.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, 'cause that's one of the conversations we were having last year.
It's
that
come
I
up
was
with the
thinking
pre-
you're
it's come
going
up
to
with
have.
it's come up with the solution on the spot for
Yeah.
shooting to make the editing a lot easier.
Good. That's exactly
And it
what
has
you want.
been this
you,
year.
you want your shoot to go as clean and
Oh,
tidy
yeah,
as
yeah.
possible, so you can just get straight into the edit rather
Yeah,
than
simple as, yeah.
wrecking your head with issues around audio and lighting
Yeah.
and composition and stuff like that. Get it right at
Oh,
source is always the
that's
best
it.
way. Okay, but yes, I can see how your research definitely has give you the building blocks
And
to
my
then.
updated website, I have written about dailies, as you told me to, the dailies and rushes, sort of examining them, and that again makes the editing process easier, because then you're looking at different takes you've done, and it's like, is this usable? Yes, no, yes, no. Then it's a simple case of just drag and drop, and then a bit of cutting the action and the cut
Yeah.
at the start, and then putting it together, and then the whole thing's usable. But then you can also sort of say, but then you can also have different dailies where it's like, okay, on this one, from this timestamp to this timestamp is usable,
Mhm.
but past that it gets a bit windy, or there was a mistake made, so we stopped that take, but you can then add that
Good.
in.
So that's basically
and
your
then
logging
take,
process?
Yeah, and then take it the second half, yeah.
Okay, good. Because
I haven't really applied that written because I've weirdly remembered what takes, like off the top of my head, I remembered what takes were good and what weren't, and what's usable, so I was able to just remember. I was like, because I always looked at my takes, like when I got home and put them on the computer, I'd watch every single one, and then I just made a mental note of which one worked. So then when I went into editing, it's been like, oh yeah, that one worked, that one didn't, so I can pull that in, simple as.
even an example of a shot log would do. You
Yeah.
know, of maybe one of your shoots.
Yeah.
You can do an example of what. Just
Oh
because
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
bit
yeah,
of an
like
industry
yeah,
standard
yeah,
type thing.
I will definitely.
Just do a
That's
shot
on
log
my
of
plan. Yeah,
one set of rushes.
that's my plan. Yeah, that's my
Okay.
plan to do, like at least one.
Okay, so what we're going to be talking about next
And
then
then-
is that planning and production stage.
Mhm.
So at the minute we're talking about the research and how that's helped your planning and how that's helped put your production
It's
into
so much easier, you know.
Yeah, and doing all this research first has obviously made that more streamlined, and obviously the results are going to be better
Oh, yeah.
because you research all these different categories, which is really important. So what we're going to talk about next when we do our next video is I'll talk about those production stages, how that research moved into all the planning. So we'll talk about your shoots, and we'll talk mainly about your planning your shoot, carrying out your shoot, and then editing. So we'll talk about that next in our next stage, okay?
Okay.
But you are happy enough. Was there anything you would do differently with your research if you were to start again?
Honestly, no.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think I covered it. Everything worked for me, and everything worked out great.
Mhm.
Like there's no stress in this final major compared to last year. Everything's just
Good. Well, I agree. I've been looking at your research as you sent it to me a while ago,
yeah.
and there wasn't an awful lot for me to add to it. I did add some stuff to it,
Yep.
but that was because I had to add something.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
And I've looked at distribution as well. I've looked at YouTube and
Mhm.
why is it beneficial to go there. But then I've looked at Film Freeway festivals.
Mhm.
Why is it beneficial to go there? I've actually looked at the case of An Irish Goodbye.
Mhm.
How that was literally just like a random wee short they decided to do.
Mhm.
And how that went. They put that through festivals, and that went to win a BAFTA and an Oscar, which is like very inspiring.
Mhm. Of
You
course.
know, to hear about.
Yeah. Well, research isn't just looking at things totally related to what you're doing. It's good to have that open research and to see all
Yeah,
the bits
yeah,
of
yeah.
film and stuff like this,
Yeah.
because you will be able to pick things out
It's
of it
like
that's relatable.
where if they went through the avenues that they've chose, you know, because it's like if Irish Goodbye just got whacked up on YouTube, it wouldn't have went to the Oscars, like, you know, but because it's went through Film Freeway,
Mm-hmm.
It did. But then there's also screenings as well, which can help then get noticed by industry people, because you can then sort of get in contact with someone in the industry, invite them to a screening, be like, come see this. They come see it, and then, you know, it can then lead to connection. They could choose to distribute that, or they could then ask you, okay, do you want to come? That was great. Do you want to come and then make a new? So then you then move into an industry work, work on a new project, but it's this time you're on like
one thing that you're doing currently, portfolio of your work.
Yeah.
This website, and you have to upload distributed, and you've looked at film freeway and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
I mean, what you could do over the summer, like in your own website, page, and put some content up, some profiles of people you've worked with, and just get the portfolio when you move into your level 4 and level 5. The sort of background, a nice portfolio, keep it clean, keep it tidy, and keep it more direct. Loads of information that you. But yeah, one thing that I thought worked well for your research is you've been very acceptive of feedback. And whenever I give you feedback of something to do, you properly go away, research it, and add it and stuff. You know, so that's been.
And then it actually has helped in a different way.
Yeah, and that's important, that you have a clear, direct pathway, but then you also add to it, and not just me, peers and other people, or like the guy you're talking to that's in your thing, always sort of take stuff on board and you utilize that to the most, because feedback and that constant back and forth of information is really, really important for development and progress. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's us.
All right.
Okay, well done. Thank you.
Cheers. God.